Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We are on episode 14 of season 5 of My Hero Academia. Episode 102, Off to Endeavor's Agency. And I'm pretty excited about this episode, I'm not gonna lie. I won't go into spoilers. If you've been watching my spoiler corner with the reactions, then you know kind of what I'm gonna say. But the only thing I can tell you all that are anime only, and this is not a spoiler, but the anime is rearranging some things from the manga. That's all I'll say. There's chapters that are being adapted that are out of order, and it's not a bad thing. It actually makes a lot of sense. And if you watched my spoiler corner last episode, I kind of talked about that, what I think is going to happen. But I've talked to a couple people in the comments and on Patreon, and I think that the reason why they're rearranging things is because there is a movie coming out this summer. And some of us have talked about this in the comments. There's a movie coming out this summer that has to do with Bakugo, Todoroki, and Deku and Endeavor. And I was like, oh, so they're rearranging certain things so that the anime will tie into the movie. That makes sense. I get that now. That totally makes sense. That explains a lot of why they're doing the things that they're doing. So I don't think that things are going to necessarily be skipped from the manga, but I think they're reorganizing it for that reason. So no spoilers, but that's if you see some stuff online or if you see some reactors being like, why is that happening? Then I think that's why. So I'm okay with that. If they're tying it into the movie, fine, whatever. As long as they don't skip things from the manga, because Horikoshi, and this is not a spoiler either, Horikoshi designs his manga where everything has a purpose. It's kind of like I'm watching Attack on Titan for the first time at the same time I'm watching this, and I've had a lot of people in the comments tell me they're like, everything in Attack on Titan happens for a reason. That's exactly how My Hero Academia is. You don't think that it has a point, but everything has a purpose. And Horikoshi's really good about taking little tiny things that you don't think about in the moment and connecting them back like hundreds of chapters later. So I just don't want the anime to skip parts of the manga because it's essential and important, and I don't think that they are now. I was a little worried last episode being like, why are we skipping around so much? But now, after talking to people and seeing that movie, I thought the movie was coming out in the winter, and I'm like, why are they skipping around now? But if it's coming out this summer, makes sense. I still think it's March, and it's like mid-June, so or it's the end of June. See, so it's like, yeah, time has no concept anymore. Ever since 2020, time has no concept. So, in any case, I'm pretty excited for this episode. As always, I'll react to the episode. I will stop, go back and reread the manga chapters, which now I have to jump around a lot, and then come back, talk about the episode, and then do a spoiler corner for those that want to be spoiled, or talk about the manga spoilers along with this. So, I'm pretty excited. Endeavor is such an interesting character because he's one that you're not meant to like, especially right off the bat in this series, because he's done some pretty horrible things that are pretty irredeemable. But the thing about Endeavor is he's a complex character in that he's trying to do something. He's trying to move forward somehow, and it's kind of a hard uphill battle for him because you've physically and mentally abused your wife and child. Like, how do you come back from that? And nothing that he's doing is going to excuse the past, but I appreciate a character that is trying to atone and do something. Like, at least trying to change their ways and not repeat the same pattern over and over again. He reminds me a lot of Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z, and Vegeta's done some really terrible things in that series, but in the end he atones and he tries to at least make amends or do something that's different. And I'm like, okay, at least you're doing something different, right? You're not just repeating the same mistakes over and over. So there's that to be said. But yeah, let's dive into this episode. I've talked enough. So we're going to start episode 14 here. There's a character I'm really looking forward to seeing animated. Here in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Yes, please. Oh, so this was a really good episode. I have to say, I've liked the Class 1A and Class 1B battles, and it's not a spoiler anymore because y'all have seen it at this point, whether you're anime only or manga readers. But I like the Class 1A, Class 1B battles. They're a great setup for things to come. I won't spoil y'all, but they're good setup for character developments later on. But with that being said, we're getting into the actual heart of the story again, which I'm all about. Horikoshi does this thing where he like gives us little breaks from the plot to give us parts of character development, and I appreciate that because I think that you need character development with these characters because they're students, they're high school students. They don't have the experience that like Hawks and Endeavor and All Might have and Aizawa have. So you need character developing moments because it's going to help them later on and for us to root for their characters more. But the plot's just getting good, guys. Like, it's just getting back in there. We're getting back into the whole thing with the Nomu, with Kyushu, with Hawks, with Endeavor. Like, it's all come back. And then the whole Meta Liberation Army. Oh my gosh. I keeping my mouth shut the whole time, like, things. So I won't spoil y'all. We'll have a spoiler corner at the end here. But yeah, this is a really good episode. I love the OP. The OP is awesome. Like, it's a bop already. It has like an 80s like synth vibe to it, like a rock vibe. I really am all for it. Very, very cool. But I like that we have Hawks talking to Endeavor on the phone because, as we've established, Hawks is being commissioned by the Hero Commission to infiltrate the League and try to get in and find some information out. So he is trying to negotiate with Dabi to get closer and closer to the League. And I have to say, this episode, Hawks sounds... And I know Hawks' VA is the same one as Kuro from Haikyuu and Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen, and I've never really noticed it until this episode, but this episode, Hawks is sounding very Gojo-ish. At first I was like, oh, he kind of sounds like Kuro, but now I'm like, no, he sounds like straight up Gojo in this episode. And I don't know if it's... Because normally, in the past, Hawks has been very jovial and kind of jokey and very kind of immature, and it's all a facade, it's all a front. But, he's been very jokey, and so his voice has had like a higher pitch, and in this episode it's like lower because he's trying to be like serious, not only to Dabi but to Endeavor too. And when his voice lowers like that, I'm like, oh, it sounds so much like Gojo. It's very, very noticeable, but I like it. I like Gojo's voice actor, so sure. I like that Dabi is just like incognito in this rain slicker, which I guess you're not going to notice because he just probably looks like a weirdo out in the street because it's like a bright day outside. Why would you have a rain jacket on? But I like Hawks' thinking. He's like, you're not just going to let me go. He's like, you know how much I'm worth to you. He's like, I'm the number 2 hero. I can give you hero intel. You need me. So he's like, you're not going to just get rid of me. He's like, but I don't want to seem too aloof. You don't want you thinking that I'm not going to be worth your time. So I like that Hawks is like, just playing all these different games at once. He's like, okay, how do I play too aloof? Do I play... Like, Hawks is a manipulative character because that's just how he's been trained as part of the Hero Commission. He is definitely double agent material. And I love that this kind of thought process in his head. And then even when we get back to him talking to Endeavor, it's like he's trying to stay one step ahead of the game. He's like, you want to make good use of me. And then I love that transition from Hawks to Dabi, like Hawks' eyes to Dabi's eyes, and they both have the same eyes. They're both thinking the same thing about each other, because you know Dabi just doesn't seem to trust him 100%. He's like, this is your last chance, and Hawks is like, I got him. He's like, I'll have you show your loyalty to the anti-establishment, which we know is the Meta Liberation. Make it someone other than the number 1 hero this time. Like, bring me somebody that's not the number 1 hero. And then we see him go to Best Jeanist. After that, and Best Jeanist, I like this little bit of lore, this tidbit that Best Jeanist kind of slips. He says, Recovery Girl can't recover anything that's already been lost. So basically, Recovery Girl can only heal you if you still have the thing that's there to be healed. So like Deku's arms, the arms are still there, she can heal them. It's not like they were cut off. If they were cut off, she probably wouldn't have been able to heal it. But they weren't cut off, so that's important to note. She can't regenerate anything. She can only repair what's there. So he lost a lung. His lung was totally obliterated by All for One, so she can't restore it, but he's like, it's possible for humans to live without lung. It's like, it's glad that you're so positive, Best Jeanist. And yeah, he's just sitting there admiring the toy and wanting to get back to work. And so it's implied Hawks has got the arrow sword. It's implied, that's too bad, that maybe Best Jeanist is the one that he's gonna give to Dabi. And so I like this established fact of Hawk telling the commission, he's like, I can't write or text or call you anything specifically anymore because I'm being traced. I'm being, targeted. They've got security stuff all over me. And we see when he meets Slide and Go and this mysterious other villain that has surfaced that he's being monitored. So he has to be careful what he says and where he goes because they're watching him. So that makes Hawks' job that much more difficult. And then we get to OP, which I'm going to skip the OP because I have a feeling that each episode I'm going to be just talking about little details with it. I did want to go back to Aries' letter that she wrote, Inko. Inko's so wonderful. I love her. But this little letter that Aries wrote, I wanted to go back to what it said. Where is it? Mr. Deku, your dancing, and she spelled dancing wrong. Your dancing and singing was amazing. Thanks for the fun show. I had fun. The candy apple, which is spelled wrong, was yummy. I'll do my best with my quirk, Mr. Deku. And she drew this little picture of him. It's so cute. Aries officially like the most precious cinnamon bun to exist. Like, protect this girl at all costs. Oh my god. And Deku's so happy about it. So yeah, them going off to the agency, and then we get the idea that he's being monitored, and then we go to Endeavor's agency, and I love Endeavor being like, "Hello, welcome," is what you think I'd say. It's like, it's great. I really like the idea of, and then of course, Endeavor's like, "Shoto, pick your friends wisely," and Bakugo's like, "Are we friends?" He's like, "I just came to learn from you." I like how All Might says, I like the contrast. Like, Shoto's very indifferent. He's like, I'm just here to train with you, Dad. Deku is like wanting to learn. And Bakugo's like wanting to learn as well, but is not letting on to it. He's like, And I forget, it's been 3 seasons, back in season 1 and season 2, that Deku did have a history with Endeavor. And Endeavor was a much different person than he is now. Just like Deku was a much different person than he is now already. So I find that very interesting. And, something about him's changed. And I like that All Might tells Bakugo, he's like, you need to learn from the current Endeavor. I think that's very, very important. Because All Might knows how Endeavor was. And I think All Might knows that Endeavor, how he used to be, was very much how, like, Bakugo is now. And both good heroes, but emotionally in different places. And he's like, Bakugo, you need to learn from Endeavor in this moment. Like how he is now. Because Endeavor has a new lease on life. He has a new motivation. He's like, you need to see what's motivating Endeavor now. Because that's going to be the best thing to impact you. And it's like All Might knows. And also All Might just being the most wholesome too. All Might and Inko. All for it. All for it. And just like, he's like, It's like, Endeavor, you're just so sweet. And I like that they're instantly picking up on things with Endeavor. Endeavor's like, back out of the way, I got this. Very much like Hawks. I can see why Hawks looks up to Endeavor. Their styles are very similar. Endeavor and Hawks are both like, let's go do things. The sidekicks can pick up the slack that we leave behind, but we got to go save people now. And I like that Izuku is instantly connecting dots. And because Izuku is a researcher, he likes his research. And he's instantly picking up on things with Endeavor. And I'm sure that Bakugo and Shoto are as well. But I love the idea that Bakugo is like, Bakugo is dead set on being faster than Hawks. He's like, I was just a little bit faster. And Hawks is like, who are you? I love it. I love it. Bakugo being instantly competitive against Hawks, who's the number 2 hero. It's like, oh, buddy. Oh, honey. I love it. And then this villain of the week. I love that this town, the people in the office are just like, what's happening? He's being really loud. Like, they're so used to villains at this point that they're just like, when's the hero going to get here? Like, it's hilarious. And this old villain of the week guy just showing up to cause havoc. And Endeavor's like, I guess I got to fix this now. And I will notice the animation on Hawks' episode, chef's kiss. Like, the way that they do his eyes especially have like this dark gleam to them. Like when he puts the book down, he's like, such bad timing. And you can tell that anything he says or does at this point is being monitored. So he's just like in his head probably thinking, these kids are here, why are we doing this? And just the way that he looks is so serious and very Gojo-like that it's interesting to note. Yeah, so we go back down here to this villain getting captured, of course. And then and I love the shot of him being like, I just happened to be in the area, and he's looking through his feathers, like that symbolism of him looking through the feathers, like he's like, Endeavor, and you can tell he wants to tell him, he's like, I'm being monitored, I have to say things a certain way. And here's the thing, and Hawks touches on it, which is kind of hilarious, that he's self-aware. Endeavor and Shoto are very similar in terms of them being extremely socially awkward and very blunt. You know, like Bakugo is smart. Bakugo is clever and smart and picks up on things very quickly. Like Bakugo picked up on things with Deku very quickly and put 2 and 2 together very handedly. And I think that Bakugo's a little bit more on the up and up in turn compared to Endeavor. Endeavor is more like Shoto. Like they're very literal people. Like Endeavor and Shoto are very literal. They take things at very face value and they're like, what are you saying? Like, just spit out. And so I'm glad that Endeavor could put 2 and 2 together by the end of this. I don't think Shoto could. I love Shoto, but I think he'd be like, Like, the guy just thought the phrase slay with his smile meant killing people. So I'm glad that Endeavor's a little more on the up and up. Because you can tell Hawks is like, please get what I'm trying to tell you. Please read between the lines, Endeavor, please. Like, you can tell he's like begging Endeavor to get it. And at first Endeavor's like, I don't understand. And then he finally gets it. And so here's the thing. Izuku, you're the kid who destroyed his fingers. Here's the thing. Hawks is smart, and he's thinking ahead of the game because he gave Endeavor the Meta Liberation Army book that we saw back in season 4. And you know Hawks is trying. It wouldn't make sense for Hawks just to walk around with 1 copy and give his 1 copy to Endeavor. That would seem suspicious. Why did you give the number 1 hero your only copy of the book and tell him there's highlighted parts? That would seem like there's a code, right? That would throw things off. So Hawks, being smart, is like, I have these extra copies. I'll just pass them out to everybody. He's like, I'm just spreading the good word about the Meta Liberation Army, just doing my job, spreading the propaganda like I'm supposed to. Here's all these copies that I've highlighted everything for. Here's one for you, Deku, and Shoto, and Totoro, and Bakugo. Here you go. So Hawks is covering his tracks very well. It's like, why would you hand out multiple copies? And Deku's like, man, he must really believe in this stuff to have all these copies. And it's like, And we get the idea of Destro, the leader of the Meta Liberation Army. Destro wanted a society completed by personal responsibility. And that's the tip-off to Endeavor. Because Endeavor's like, wait, this is not you. You don't want to have responsibility. You've preached about not wanting responsibility, and now you're telling me that we need to have responsibility over ourselves? What? And Hawks is like, please read between the lines and see what I'm saying. And then Endeavor finally does, which is really good. So I, being a manga reader, I have wanted to see Burnin animated for quite some time. So I got really excited when I saw her. And here's a tweet from Horikoshi this morning that had Burnin. She's wonderful. I did not think that her hair would be green. I'm very surprised by that. I think maybe there was a color spread of her in the manga and I just don't remember it. Maybe her hair was green and I just didn't get it. But I didn't expect her hair to be green, like green fire. That's really interesting. It looks kind of like ectoplasm, like Ghostbusters. But she's wonderful. I love her banter with Bakugo. Like, Bakugo's just like, oh, really? And she's like, I'm a fiery personality like you, Bakugo. Because Bakugo would actually be a really good fit in Endeavor's agency. Because Bakugo's quirk is kind of fire. It's explosions, which involves fire. So I think that's kind of cool. But her eyes, she's like, has these crazy, big, giant eyes. And this fiery hair. And he's like, interesting. And she's just like, let's do it. Like, you can tell, like, I love her and Bakugo's interactions. They're going to be great. But yeah, and I like the team's like, oh, we're not going to take it easy on you just because you're Endeavor's son. But Endeavor's agency is big. Like, they have over 30 sidekicks in Endeavor's agency. And they're taking like 100 requests a day for dispatching. And that's just one hero's agency. So I really like that despite everything, despite how blunt Endeavor can be, he's got a good business going here. He's got a good setup. I don't know how much of that is actually Endeavor or how others have played into it, if his sidekicks, if he's got some savvy sidekicks. But it's a busy agency, and so I like that Bakugo and Todoroki and Deku are getting to see like what a legit agency operates like what is a daily life and a hero going to be. That's really cool. And Bakugo, of course, just wants to jump right into the fray, like, let's go rescue people. And the sidekicks are like, there's a protocol and procedure to this. Bakugo's like, screw that. So it's going to be funny to see that all come together. But yeah, I'm glad that Endeavor picking it up, and I love that he's just like frantically going through the book now, being like, and we're seeing the timeline here. We're seeing the timeline with Hawks, like everything's coming in a roundabout way. And Hawks is like, I hate having to be two-faced. I hate having to play all these different roles. Like, Hawks is like, why do I have to do this? But he's a good actor, so he's good at his job. And then the Meta Liberation Army is the enemy. They're going to spring into action in 4 months. So in April. So it's New Year's, so in 4 months, by April, they're going to spring into action. So that'll be like the start of Deku and all of them. It'll be the start of their second year, basically. And then I love the ED. I love Hawks getting the Endeavor plushie. Like, that's so sweet. So sweet. But yeah, oh my gosh. So lots of spoilers to talk about in this episode. Lots of spoilers. But you know what? That's for the spoiler corner. I'm just so glad we're getting back into the plot of this show. It's so interesting. The Endeavor Agency arc is fun, and I'm really, really excited. I'm very curious to see what all they're going to show us, but no spoilers. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah. Oh, guys, I'm so happy. So I hope y'all are too. We do have spoilers to talk about, so we'll get right to it. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to y'all again soon with more My Hero Academia. I feel much better after this episode. I really do. And you know why? Because going back and reading the manga, I am realizing that as much as I love the manga, and I'm such a manga purist, when they do adaptations, I want them to be exactly like the manga, and I get kind of bent out of shape when things are... I think Haikyuu, here's the difference. I think with Haikyuu, everything's in a very linear format. And so as I was watching Haikyuu, if something was left out, I got really dejected by it, because I was like, no, why are you moving stuff around? Like Haikyuu, I think Haikyuu's timeline is a pretty straightforward linear narrative, and it works very well. Horikoshi, bless his heart. After reading these chapters of the manga, I'm like, oh god, no. I'm actually on board after this episode with what the anime is doing. There's a couple things that I'm a little like, about, but I'm really happy with what they're doing overall, because I think that a lot of the complaints in season 4 was how disjointed the anime was, or seemed to be, and really, Horikoshi can't help that, because Horikoshi was trying to fit in all these little arcs to connect into the next part of the story. So you really couldn't move things around in season 4 without it being confusing, right? You just had to take the little arcs as they were and just roll with it. Like the Culture Festival, you couldn't move the Culture Festival around. You couldn't move it around. It had to stay where it was. With this season, the anime team is moving some stuff around, and it actually works out pretty well, because in the manga, Horikoshi jumps back and forth in time a lot, and it can get confusing trying to figure out when stuff is taking place. Like, we even started this episode out a few weeks in the past, and then in the manga, it's just things are shuffled around quite a lot. So, I'm actually on board with what the anime is doing right now. After this episode and going back and reading the manga, I'm like, okay, they're not leaving anything out, which I'm glad. They're just moving stuff around. And so we haven't got Redestro's introduction yet, but we got Destro's. So that's important. That makes me think, okay, cool, we're going to tie back to Redestro very soon. We'll talk about that. But I like what the anime is doing. And after this episode, I was like, I breathed a huge internal sigh of relief going, okay, good deal. Glad we got that out of the way, right? So that makes me feel a lot better. But, so for example, this episode actually starts out with Chapter 231. So we've skipped from Chapter 219 to 241, and now we're going back in time to 231. So you can kind of get an idea of how much Horikoshi is like going back and forth with the story. And I almost feel like maybe Horikoshi, for the sake, because Shonen Jump, Shonen Jump relies a lot on cliffhangers, and I can get that Horikoshi wanted to make the cliffhangers for the manga work per chapter. So I'm glad that the anime is being like, okay, we're going to tie things back in a little bit more fluid narrative, which works very well here. I think this episode did a really good job with that. But I can't help it, y'all. I couldn't talk about it in the episode. I wanted to so badly, but I couldn't. But Dobby Hawks, Hot Wings, that transition from Hawks to Dobby, my shipper heart was just fanning itself. I was like, because I'm a big Dobby Hawk shipper. It's just the cinematic parallels, the poetry of their relationship, the whole thing about the hero coming up from the villains and the villains coming from the heroes. Like, it's just poetry. I love it. And there's so many, like, Dobby and Hawks have such an interesting relationship in this series, and they're just so back and forth cat and mouse with one another. But here's the thing. Dobby is not as savvy as Hawks. He's just not. He's not. He's got enough of his father in him that he just can't help it. But yeah, that whole part where the girls were like, oh my God, are you on the phone with your girlfriend? I'm like, kind of. I couldn't help it. But they add a few little things in here with the Hero Commission to kind of connect the dots. Especially Hawks saying, like, everything has to be sent in code from now on because I'm being monitored. Like, I really, really like that. And here's the thing, and I'm going to show you all an image from chapter 231. The only thing I'm disappointed in with the anime is how they handled the Hawks and Best Jeanist scene. And that's the only part I'm going to critique with this episode, because in the manga, here's that scene. The whole scene is just 2 pages in the manga. It's chapter 231. It's just these 2 pages, the whole scene with Hawks and Best Jeanist. So it's not that anything was cut out, but you can look at the tonal shift. Look how the tone is in this scene in the manga and compare it with the anime. In the anime, everything's still bright and colorful and happy. In the manga, it's freaking dark. Like, when I read the manga, when I read this chapter for the first time, I was like, what is Hawks doing? Is Hawks a bad guy? What's happening? What's going on? And you still kind of get that implication here that Hawks is planning something, and that Dobby just told him to take out a hero, and you get him with Best Jeanist. So the implication is still there, but in the manga, you really think that Hawks is doing some bad stuff. And that's going to come back later on when we have the whole thing with Twice, is that Hawks is willing to do bad things for the Commission for the sake of heroes. That's going to come back. And I like that the anime makes his wing flapping a little bit more labored and slow, because as he's carrying that bag around, I'm wondering how many anime-only people are going to pick up that it's Best Jeanist in the bag. I wonder how many people are going to pick up on that. I don't know. But yeah, it's you just get the implication of it's Best Jeanist in the bag. And we don't get that confirmed until later, but yeah, I like the here's the thing, Hawks gets a little disgusted. He's like, why are you treating my resolve with such disdain? Like, I just killed someone for you. Why aren't you meeting up with me? And we find out later that the reason Dobby isn't meeting up with him on time is because right now they're in Daika City fighting the Liberation Army. So it's like, it's all going to come back full circle. So I'm going to wait until, I'm just anticipating they're going to go back to this scene later on in the season and go back to Hawks with the body. And the whole reason being, because in the manga, it's right in the middle of the battle. It's right in the middle of the battle with the Liberation Army versus the League of Villains when all this is going down. And so it's going to be interesting to see when they go back to it that Dobby's like, I can't meet up with you right now because I'm fighting Getten. So, yeah. I just want to make a little note about Inko here. I've talked about Dad for One theories in previous episodes, but here's my thing. I don't believe in Dad for One. I don't think that All for One is Midoriya's father. What I do think, though, is that I don't think that All for One is Deku's father, but I do think that they're related. And so I just wanted to make a little note while I'm thinking of Inko, while she's here in the episode. I do want to note that Inko's quirk is to draw things closer to her, is to draw things to her, right? It's just to attract objects. I find that an interesting quirk because, for one, Deku is supposedly born without a quirk. So whatever his parents had as quirks could have been anything. Horikoshi could have chosen anything. Like, they say that Deku's father is a fire breather. Okay, cool, whatever. That's just an objectively random quirk, right? So the mom could have had any quirk, right? She could have been telepathic. She could have been psychic. She could have like made like ice with her hands. She could have like made mushrooms pop up. She could have done anything. But Horikoshi specifically made her ability to draw quirks to her, to draw objects to her, which I just said it now, is kind of similar to All for One's quirk of taking quirks from others, of drawing quirks to him. That's like his power, is to take quirks away and use them. Her quirk is to draw objects towards her. So it's similar. My theory is that All for One is Deku's like great-great-grandfather or some crazy stuff. Like he had a kid with someone, and Inko's the descendant of that kid. Like that's my crack theory, is that All for One is related to Deku, just not immediate, right? So I don't know. I just find that interesting that Inko's quirk is to draw things to her when All for One's quirk is to take things away and draw them to himself. So I just find it interesting. I'm just saying, if it's like a quirk diluted over time and that's her quirk, I'm just saying, because especially if you read the manga now, there are a lot of similarities in how Deku looks and how All for One looks. A lot of similarities. If we find out that All for One has green eyes, it's over. It's over. So that's all I'll say on the Dad for One theory for now. We don't get, we get, oh my gosh, I can't even think of his name now. Skeptic. Yeah, we get a little bit of Skeptic, and we get to see him in the OP, but we don't get to see him fully face to face yet. I also like that Hawks' coffee is called Fox, because Hawks is sly as a fox, and he's a fox in a hen house. Nice, Horikoshi. Nice touch there. But yeah, we get to see kind of Skeptic, and I'm surprised. Skeptic's voice is a lot deeper than I anticipated. I anticipated Skeptic having like a little smarmier voice. I did not expect him to have a deep voice like he does. So that's really cool. I'm interested to know who his voice actor is. It's going to be interesting to look that up later. Or I'm hoping KA usually comments on these videos. I'm hoping KA will give me some info down below on Skeptic's voice actor at some point. But yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I like that Bakugo calls Endeavor cringy. That's hilarious to me. So hilarious. The scene with All Might and being so supportive. If you're reading the manga right now, I'm on chapter 317 of the manga, and chapter 318 is coming out this weekend. Dad might. Yeah, like, I just get Guardians of the Galaxy vibes where people are like, oh. God, where he's like, he may be your father, but he's not your daddy. It's like, oh God, no. The stuff with Deku and All Might right now is really sad. And watching the anime at the same time that's so far back in the past, it's like, God, Horikoshi, I know it's like 80 chapters later, but I'm so sad because All Might and Deku's relationship's so strong at this point and positive and happy, and right now in the manga it's depressing and sad, and I'm like, God, Horikoshi, what you doing? But yeah, so getting a lot of, there's not really any foreshadowing with the old man here. I find the antagonism instantly from Bakugo to Hawks interesting, especially because Hawks has presumably killed Best Jeanist at this point, and so there's that little antagonism with him and Bakugo that I find very fascinating, and the manga doesn't really do anything with it at this point, but it's there, and I find that fascinating. The panels with Endeavor and Hawks leading up to this are very, very fun. So the chapter, I just wanted to point this out too. This is a chapter for 245, where the episode after 231, Endeavor's agency arc starts in chapter 245, and here's the color spread for it. It's a great color spread. I really like it. It's very rock bandish, kind of fits the OP. Very nice. But what I like is afterwards, as Endeavor is slowly piecing together everything with what Hawks has told him. So here is the page in the manga. Thankfully they translate the book into English. In the episode they don't translate everything, which, animation team, how could you? That'd be so many subtitles. But we get enough out of it. But here is the page in the manga where the book is translated. Viz does translate the book into English. And we get Destro introduced, who we find out is Redestro's father. Interesting enough. It's like kind of like Redestro and Destro. So that makes me think that they're going to introduce Redestro next episode, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to go down. But I think they're going to introduce Redestro next episode. It would make sense if they did. But the animation adaptation of the manga to the anime for this scene with Endeavor looking over the book was done very, very well. I also really like in this panel how young Endeavor looks in that one panel where he's like scanning through the book. Like, it's a weird angle, but he looks so young there. And it's very interesting because you can kind of see Shoto, you can see Endeavor in Shoto in these moments where he gets kind of concerned and is scanning through the book. You can kind of see how they look a little bit similar, even though Shoto favors his mom, Rei, a little bit more. But yeah, really good stuff. And yeah, we're all prefacing the war arc, which I'm going to go back into the OP real quick. There was one shot from the OP I want to go back to and look at real quickly. And it's of Aizawa, and I wanted to go back to that. I wanted to go back to that really quickly because I thought that was an interesting panel. I don't think that they're going to get into Aizawa's story too much in this season. I think they're going to save that for season 5, and this is just like a little preview, perhaps. But there's a shot of Aizawa and Present Mike and Sushi the cat, and yeah, okay. Obviously, there's going to be stuff getting into Shigaraki's backstory, which I was so excited about. But yeah, it's just one panel. It is one panel, literally. Yep, Sushi. So it's just one panel. Present Mike, Aizawa, and Sushi, and the line of the OP is no one, no one, no one else. And it's them looking away and sure. Because in Vigilantes, that gives me hope that at least at some point, even if it's in season 6, we're going to get the Vigilante storyline in there. Because Sushi, in the storyline, Sushi is the cat. He's a little kitten that Aizawa finds in the rain. And he doesn't have an umbrella or any way to carry him in the rain. And so he finds this kitten in a box and he sets a little umbrella up. And then he discovers the cat's missing and he gets kind of sad about it. But his best friend Shirakumo, who becomes Kurogiri, rescues the kitten and brings it to class and gives it to Aizawa. And Aizawa keeps the cat and he calls it Sushi. And then Aizawa ends up giving the cat to Midnight. And so there's a whole storyline with it. It's so sweet. It's so tragic and beautiful. And the fact that they put Sushi in this OP makes me have a little hope that they're going to include the Vigilante storyline in the anime. Which if they do, it's going to be like sob central when we get to that storyline, because that it's so beautiful and it would fit this anime very well, and I hope that they do it. But yeah, I just saw that one brief moment in the anime OP and I was like, yay! So that got me excited. But okay, well, I have rambled about this for half an hour. But I'm so excited, y'all. My Hero Academia, I'm so excited for the anime only people, because the storyline is really going to get good from here, y'all. I can't wait there's moments that we've seen little tiny teasers for that I'm so ready for. I can't tell y'all how excited I am. But anyway, so that's all I got for this week. Next week should be a lot of fun, continuing with the Endeavor Agency. I'm really curious if they're going to talk about a certain storyline, if we're going to get that early or not, but I don't know. In any case, I guess we'll find out next week. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to comment down below. Please note spoilers if you have them. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back next week with more talk about My Hero Academia. Bye.